After months of deranged and increasingly violent rhetoric, Donald Trump was slapped with a gag order by the presiding judge of one of the many cases he faces as he goes into the 2024 election cycle. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so an important, arguably incremental, certainly long overdue, but a very important nonetheless step towards establishing that we are well and truly equal under the law and that Donald Trump is no exception has been taken today. What am I talking about? Well, he was hit with a gag order by Judge Tanya Chutkin, who's the presiding judge in the second special counsel investigation, or the trial concerning the special counsel indictment over Donald Trump's attempts to steal the 2020 election from President Biden and his participation in the January 6th insurrection, okay? So he has spent months making all kinds of deranged comments. As a matter of fact, the Midas Touch network, they have a great list of basically a compilation of all the deranged and increasingly violent comments made by Donald Trump against Judge Chutkin and Jack Smith and other officers of the court and their family members, et cetera, and so forth. So today there was a hearing in Washington, D.C. by Jack Smith's office saying, hey, listen, he can't keep talking like this. He can't be potentially polluting the jury pool, intimidating witnesses, making threatening comments about the judge, the prosecutor, their family. Because as a matter of fact, I think it was back in August, there was a woman in Texas who was questioned by law enforcement because she left threatening voicemails to Judge Chutkin, threatening to hurt her or kill her, as if I remember correctly, because of her loyalty to Donald Trump. Right? So Donald Trump's words are having actions here by any reasonable take. And so after this hearing, Judge Chutkin issued a narrowly tailored, but still very important, gag order with the threat of sanctions if Donald Trump violates that gag order, which he almost certainly will. So Axios has a breakdown. And by the way, she didn't give prosecutors everything they asked for, by the way. A lot of people say, oh, she's in the bag for Jack Smith. She'll just give Jack Smith whatever she wants. She didn't, and we'll get into that in just a second. So Jack Smith said a gag order was necessary to protect the integrity of the judicial proceedings, and Donald Trump's lawyers, led by John Lauro, he had the unenviable task of trying to defend Trump here. He's like, listen, my client enjoys First Amendment protections. He can basically say whatever he wants. Sure, he's a bit hyperbolic. Sure, he's a bit excitable. Sure, he says things that are ill-advised, but he can basically say whatever he wants because of the First Amendment, and he's running for president. One of the things I liked about Judge Chutkin is, though, she reiterated, according to reporting from inside the courthouse, that Donald Trump's campaign, she reaffirmed, it will have no impact whatsoever. She does not care that he's running for president. She's not going to accommodate that. She's not going to bend over backwards to, provide him any special privileges. If this interferes with his presidential campaign, so be it, right? She's going to treat him, she says, like every other defendant. And she also said she would not delay the March 4th, 2024 trial date, right? Because, of course, Trump's attorneys are like, well, you know what? We could probably spare ourselves all this if we could just kick that date back, until after the election. And she says, no, absolutely not. So the gag order, okay? Under the order, Trump would not be allowed to mount a pretrial smear campaign against prosecutors and court personnel, Chutkin said. No other criminal defendant would be allowed to do so, and I'm not going to allow it in this case. Federal prosecutors argued that Trump's public remarks about the case threatened to undermine public confidence in the justice system and prejudice the jury pool. And so Chutkin agreed to some things. The gag order forbids Trump from making statements that target special counsel Jack Smith or his family, prosecutors, court staff, or witnesses. However, it doesn't prevent him from criticizing D.C., which is, again, where the jury pool would reside, or President Biden and the Biden administration, or the Justice Department, okay? She did not restrict Trump's statements about his belief that the case is politically motivated and did not prevent him from making statements about her. She also said that he can make remarks about political opponents like Mike Pence, who would also be a witness, as long as the comments don't relate directly to his role in the case. Now, is somebody like Donald Trump, who is profoundly stupid and indiscriminate in his language, is he going to recognize that distinction? Probably not. But she at least gave him an out. Now, what's hilarious is, in response, Trump says, a terrible thing happened to democracy today. A gag order. Will appeal the gag order ruling. Witch hunt. So he said on Troth Central. Troth Central, the best place. But yeah, listen, this may not seem like a big deal, but it is. It's actually kind of sad that it is because, again, if this were any other criminal defendant, I'm actually convinced if it were pretty much any other political defendant, with the possible exception of President Biden, and only because he's the sitting president, I am convinced that the court would have moved more quickly, more expediently, and have been less concerned about the consequences. Donald Trump is 77 years old, and even though he's a deranged, malignant narcissist and an idiot and profoundly corrupt, part of the problem is that I think, I'm going to paint with a broad brush here, I think we've all contributed to grading this man on a curve. He has been allowed for the majority of his 77 years to believe he's not going to face consequences, right? And it's sad. And that's part of the reason why I try to take the opportunity, even though sometimes I get bored with it because, it's one thing after another with this guy. But we do need to talk about it, even if we have the impulse to just ignore it. He is the former president of the United States. He may very well be the president of the United States again. We have to stop grading him on a curve. We should grade him fairly. And this is a huge freaking deal. This is, again, a long overdue thing. It's important, though. It's important to establishing the myth, the nice myth, the attractive myth that we should make a reality as quickly as possible, but the myth that all are equal under the law. We should make that a possibility or a reality instead of just a possibility. And this step by Judge Chutkin today takes us just a bit closer in that direction. Donald Trump has lived a life of privilege and wealth. He has a belief that he is above the law, that he doesn't have to face consequences for his actions. However small this may be, just a gag order with the vague threat of sanctions, because she didn't say what the sanctions would be. She said if he violates them, there will be sanctions and we'll address it if and when that time comes, which means when that time comes, because there's no if about it. He's almost certainly going to violate that gag order. This is an important step towards making that myth a reality.